Now, è aperta la discussione. In attesa, I have two questions. Okay. One goes to the first presentation. Being with a high BMI, hypertensive. Question is, I've seen many very obese people running and running and running, and I'm wondering how. Is there does ever the physical and the fitness, the capability to sustain endurance exercise enter into the equation? And also, does exercise training do anything on insulin resistance at the myocytes level? It does somewhere else. And as far as the two other presentations, BMP in acute heart failure didn't do much. Question is, could that be that in advanced heart failure, BMP levels are so high that you don't really want to modulate them because there is already too many? It's like, when you give, catecholamine support may be helpful to some extent, but when there is plenty already, it may be way too much. And second, I confess my ignorance. Is there any evidence that AT1 receptors may remodel themselves in advanced heart failure? So somehow the valsartan's part of the story is not working as effective as it should?
No, I agree. I think that more than a question is a statement, and I agree with the fact that physical aerobic training, which is a non-pharmacological treatment on top on drug and device treatment, can help, but I do not know any study addressing specifically the role of physical training with regard to the obesity paradox. So I think that it's a topic of relevance, but I have no answer.
To answer your question, for the effect of activity on insulin, on myocardial insulin resistance, the only two things that have been shown to impact myocardial insulin resistance are physical activity and glitazones.
Okay.
And I don't know if Marielle has another answer, but first, I think that there is a distinction between the high level of natriuretic peptides. We know that part of what is an elevated BNP may be an abnormal or ineffective molecule. But also it may be that the natriuretic peptides administered acutely, like in the ASCEND trial or before, may not be what really changes the situation. There are some preliminary but elegant studies done by John Burnett at the Mayo Clinic, where the administration of smaller doses of natriuretic peptide by subcutaneous administration long term may have more positive effects, or the BNP that we use may not be the right peptide to give for therapy, and he's doing similar studies with subcutaneous administration of the hybrid peptide CDNP.
I would just add to these comments that despite my focusing on the effect of LCZ696 on natriuretic peptides, as Dr. Gavazzi showed, it probably has other vasodilating properties. And so we don't understand which of those are important in the efficacy that we've seen. But I completely agree as well that looking at class 2 heart failure patients and the impact of LCZ 696 is very different than using natriuretic peptides on a decompensated, hospitalized heart failure population. So we have to begin to think about very different phenotypes so all heart failure is not the same, just like all cancer is not the same.
So I would like to remind 3 points. One is the concept of receptor and post-receptor resistance to natriuretic peptides, which is well known in advanced heart failure patients. The second is the story of nesiritide. So remember the editorial by Topol, nesiritide not verified. So the problem is that if patient is planned, there is plenty of natriuretic peptides, but there are no receptors to go. So these natriuretic peptides do not work. And if you look at this paper, if you look at the subset above the median of NT-proBNP, there is no difference. So this could be an explanation, a pathophysiological explanation. Peripheral resistance to natriuretic peptide. So it works when there is need of natriuretic peptide. It does not work if there is peripheral resistance. And there are many kinds of resistance.
Stefano?
Congratulazioni Maria Rosa, ti nominerò per il prossimo premio dell'American College of Endocrinologists. Da endocrinologo. Hai fatto non avrei potuto fare di meglio. Una domanda e una curiosità e anche una proposta di collaborazione. Io sono uno dei pochi che in questo paese utilizza con continuità in certi pazienti il pioglitazone, che è un farmaco che ha subito molti attacchi nel mondo diabetologico, nel mondo cardiologico. Tu sai tutta la polemica in corso adesso sui DPP4 inhibitors, the Savor-TIMI 53 results di Examine, stiamo aspettando il TICOS all'American Diabetes Association in June, ma io sono affascinato dall'idea di utilizzare il pioglitazone con gli SGLT2 inhibitors. Per chi non lo sapesse, per i cardiologi sono questa nuova classe di farmaci che inibiscono il cotrasportatore sodio-glucosio a livello del tubulo prossimale, quindi inducono glicosuria, hanno un effetto inizialmente natriuretico, ma fondamentalmente agiscono sia sulla pressione arteriosa che sul peso, che soprattutto sulla glicemia, perché sono dei glicosurici. Quindi sono farmaci che andrebbero a contrastare gli effetti negativi del glitazone, che è la ritenzione sodio indotta e quindi la ritenzione idrica. Cosa ne pensi? Se ti piace, ci mettiamo seduti con Edoardo e scriviamo.
È un'idea interessantissima e infatti io penso che ci sia bisogno anche di verificare di più gli effetti anche natriuretici, non solo glicosurici da noi ci sono 2 farmaci.
Sono 3.
Sì, da noi c'è solo uno si chiama Invocana e l'altro Farxiga.
Esatto, sì. Ma ce n'è un altro che si chiama Empagliflozin, che è di Boehringer Ingelheim and Lilly, is a co-promotion. Quindi Edoardo devi lavorare i prossimi mesi.
First of all, I want to thank all the speakers in this session. I'm delighted. You all were outstanding, and I have to thank you very much. But let me come back to the issue from Michele. because I think you made a very appropriate observation, but also there is another question which arises, and that is a question that I posed to Marielle and to Antonello. The question is that it is true that this molecule can work only if there is the need of NP. But if you provide the recombinant BNP to severely decompensated patients, you have a gigantic drop in the blood pressure, meaning that the two effects of the drug provide distinct effects in the clinical setting. One is positive, which is natriuresis, and this is the effect that probably is not needed, or is very needed, and is possible to be performed in your class 2, but not when patient is too sick. While vasodilating effect, which is positive or might be worsened, heart failure when hypotension is present, is something that we have to take care about. That is what I'm thinking. I don't know if you share this vision, but I would be eager to have your valuable opinion. Thank you.
Please, I insist.
No, these are all speculations because we don't have I don't know the real clinical data in these patients, and I think it will be very interesting to try after a good characterization from the biomarkers and looking at the single patient with the level of biomarkers and treating these patients in the right way to this very particular problem that should be demonstrated. I mean, how deal in this particular very delicate patient.
I think your question really gets at the foundation of our ignorance. Earlier, we heard that cardiac impedance monitoring or hemodynamics only works in less sick patients, not sicker patients. This drug may only work in less sick patients. CRT works in more sick patients, but it also works in asymptomatic patients. I think if we are going to make advances, we need to be more precise when we talk about this, that it's not enough to describe phenotypes, that we really do have to embrace not only biomarkers, but learn all the slides that Maria also said don't pay attention to. We have to learn about what's happening at the level of the myocytes and the periphery and the vasculature. And that kind of detail is what our oncology partners are already doing. And we're not. We're still talking about New York Heart Association class, which is something from the last century, early in the last century. So I think it's a great question, but I think we're not prepared. And we do have to embrace a whole nother level of detail that is painful to contemplate, but it's the only way I think we're going to make even more advances.
I agree with you, but I also think that sometimes we ignore preceding knowledge.
That's right.
For example, if you look at all the animal studies on administration of recombinant BNP, and then the early clinical studies, the doses that caused some significant natriuresis were the doses that caused prohibitive hypotension. So when we give them in doses that avoid hypotension, we are not getting an effective natriuresis.
I share the point.
Ok, thank you. Se non ci sono altre domande, la giornata è stata lunga, molto efficace e la contenzioso andrà avanti a tavola. Grazie a tutti e a domani alle 9.